police, doctors. When this thing flew over, it stopped traffic on the turnpike. This is probably the largest UFO sighting in history, I believe. Perhaps the Phoenix Lights are maybe bigger, but this is an ongoing sighting over 10 years.
Just extraordinary, and almost in my backyard, because I think we can get to that from the Great Lakes here in Canada. We can see some of that. Now, Michael, what I was going to talk about there with the size of this craft that you're mentioning, it reminded me of this document, Project Aquarius, we'll talk about later, but I just want to make mention that in one, I think, maybe it was the Project Camelot video I was watching, but you said it was either in the Aquarius or the documentary you were in, but you said that there was a hangar at one time, that the opening to the hangar when going through the base was twice the size of a B-2 bomber.
That is correct. That is correct.
So we could assume that there were craft being built that may mirror the size of these Hudson Bay craft.
Yeah, this I got from an engineer who worked for General Electric for 30 years, and we met near O'Hare Airport about 5 years ago. And he told me, he said, Mike, I was part of a program back in 92 at Air Force Plant 42 Palmdale, and our responsibility was to take a B-52 and tow it from Air Force Plant 42 to Edwards North Base Complex, and tow it through an underground tunnel, and on top of the B-52 there was a pylon, and on top of that pylon there was an X-20 Dinosaur vintage hypersonic aircraft prototype that was sitting on the spine of the B-52. And he said, as we were towing this B-52 through this tunnel, there were 4 connecting shafts that were connected to the shaft that we were in. And he said 2 ran north, 2 ran south. I asked him, where did they lead? He didn't know. He said one of the shafts was twice as big as the one he was in, and you could put 2 B-52s side by side and still have 6 feet on either wingtip. I got that directly from him. So
that is absolutely enormous.
So that is another, I mean, it doesn't prove it. I don't have any physical evidence to back that up, but that's just another one of these small little bits of information about what we've heard about for decades, that the government has been using these tunnel boring machines for over 40 years. Some of these are over 40 feet in diameter, and they've been crisscrossing the country. It sounds crazy, but there is definitely some good indication that states that Los Alamos National Labs is connected to perhaps Edwards Air Force Base, North Base Complex, Area 51, and many other locations.
You know, it's interesting. We're on a paranormal program, so you out in Radio Land listening, don't take this the wrong way. But, Michael, it feels like you're reading my mind, because I was just about to talk about those tunnel boring machines that have been developed by Black Ops projects. I've been hearing for years and years about humongous underground facilities being built not only in the United States, but all over the world. And these machines that you indicate could be, part of the process of these things being excavated.
Interesting you mentioned that, and I'll highlight Richard Sauter's book. He has a brand new book about underground bases, and he explains that in the background he references it, and I've got the newspaper clippings from ASU to back it up. In 2001 and 2003, this is an absolute true story. You can check it out. There was a lot of classified blasting at everyone's favorite person's place, right? Former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Oh, right.
The warm and loving Dick Cheney, right?
Right.
There was classified blasting going on at his house at the U.S. Naval Observatory near Washington, D.C., and the newspapers were all over the Navy, and they were asking him, what in the world are you guys doing? And the Navy will not comment on the blasting, and they were arrogant. They said, we are sorry, but the blasting cannot be limited to daytime-only blasting, which meant that they had to do it at night as well. So they were shooting off dynamite blasting for months, and all the people in the area were up in arms over this. They were furious at this because it was during the day, and the night people couldn't get any sleep. The question is, what is so urgent that the U.S. Navy had to do secret blasting at night, waking up people for miles around, like they're on a crash program to build an underground tunnel to connect to something. Who knows? Nobody knows, and the Navy won't say a word.
Yeah, I read this article too. This is fascinating. There's been some speculation that there's almost some sort of, I don't know what kind of water this holds, but some sort of underground transit system taking place.
Sure. Yeah. You know what? I believe it. Richard Sauter's done a very good job. I think he's proved his case. It's real. I mean, they have built these things. It's been going on for perhaps over 45 years. I believe we do have a tunnel system that connects these bases. You'd have to have something like that. If you're going to have these programs, I mean, is this to fight bin Laden? Are we spending billions of dollars per year to go fight bin Laden? Do we even know if bin Laden is still alive? He could be dead. We don't even know that. Yeah. It's got to be for something much bigger than a, quote, terrorist threat.
I absolutely agree with you on that one. Now, we know that Dick Cheney was a powerful figure, but what exactly is the connection here between Cheney and these Black Ops projects is what I'm questioning here.
He ran a lot of this years ago when he was Secretary of Defense, and you will recall that there was a very interesting aircraft program that was proposed in the 1980s, and it was designed to replace the A-6 Intruder as an all-weather attack aircraft. And this was called the A-12 Avenger II. This was a joint McDonnell-Douglas General Dynamics program, and it was a very interesting stealthy aircraft that they called the, quote, Flying Dorito. I've always been fascinated by this aircraft and trying to get more information on it. Very little has ever been published on this aircraft program. It's just amazing. You can't get almost any data on the A-12 Avenger II. Dick Cheney canceled this program in 1991. But what's interesting, Justin, is taxpayers spent $5 billion on this program. It was canceled January 7th, 1991 by Dick Cheney.
Right.
We all spent $5 billion on this program, the A-12 Avenger II, and we have absolutely nothing to show for it. It's an absolute Greek tragedy.
Yeah, that's right. And does this look like the forebearer to the Stealth? Or no, I guess the Stealth came out in 88, but it's similar, isn't it?
Well, it doesn't really look like the F-117A.
Okay.
It looks like a Dorito. It's strictly a triangular-shaped craft with a crew of two. That seat tandem was designed to be a Navy carrier all-weather attack aircraft to replace the A-6 Intruder. And it's fascinating that you can get almost no data on this aircraft. And I think that since we as taxpayers basically blew $5 billion on this, and the only thing they have is a beat-up old wooden mock-up that's at General Dynamics Fort Worth Lockheed facility that's not available for the public to see at all, and it's just rotting away. That's all we have to show for it. What the government needs to do is cut a check for every American taxpayer and divide it between $5 billion. And that's what they should do.
I agree. I'll tell you, a lot of us are living below the poverty line, and the divide is massive these days. So I'm definitely siding with you on this one. I'm glad that we got back on track from the underground bases back into aviation, because I want to talk to you about some of the amazing technological feats, even more so than we've already mentioned, that have come out of these Black Ops projects, specifically cloaking, and invisibility, as well as anti-gravity or lighter-than-aircraft technology. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Let's spend just 30 seconds laying out the groundwork here so that everyone can follow along.
Sure.
And I'm giving everyone their references for this so they can check it out themselves. Regarding black programs, Detroit Free Press did a very interesting article published February 8th, 1987. Okay, it says, Secret Ledger hides military projects. Pentagon black budget has tripled under the Reagan administration. And in this article, they give you a chart that you can reference at your local library. And basically they highlight that the federal growth spending for fiscal year 1988, actually in 1981, it was just over $500 million. By 1988, it rose, it was a gigantic growth of $9.122 billion. The federal spending by category, for agriculture, it was $26 billion. For transportation, it was $28 billion. The Pentagon's black budget for fiscal year 1988 was $35 billion. And then if we go to the Air Force budget, the total budget for the Air Force for fiscal year 1988 was $51.1 billion, of which $19.1 billion was for classified black budget programs. So if you look at the breakdown here, Justin, the U.S. government is spending more on black budget programs than they are to fix schools, roads, more than the agriculture, and even more than education.
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it now. It is definitely, and Paul Hellyer agrees with me, that the economic system and the economic divide is a demented system when there's so much going on where we can put our money. I wonder why so much focus is being put on this, and I'm going to go ahead and make another speculation that isn't it interesting that this massive increase in black budget money came at the same time in the Reagan administration when Reagan was also alluding to the idea of an extraterrestrial presence coming to Earth.
Right, that's true. He did mention that at least 3 times, and Gorbachev did as well. So there's something going on there. Certainly, the procurement funding for the Star Wars program led to something. We don't know what that is. We just don't know what that is. It's never really been told. Was Star Wars used as a defensive weapon against you-know-who? We don't know. It's up for speculation.
Yep, and some of those NASA UFOs that you can see on YouTube out there, if you just Google NASA UFOs, there's some speculation that there are some flashes in some of these videos where there are Star Wars weapons in action. Anyway, enough with the speculation. Years and years ago, Michael, I think it was in an issue of Popular Science, there was, in the invention section, new technology section, there was a suit designed for military personnel on patrol made, it was almost like chain mail, but with mirrors. Now, these mirrors would reflect what was behind the soldier to the front, making him virtually invisible. Now, we've developed this technology to such a state that you can actually build it right into the skin of an aircraft. Am I right in saying so?
You're right on target. You're talking about the electrochromic panels that are used for daytime stealth technology. That's absolutely correct. You've hit that right on the money. What they're doing is they're electronically transferring an image of what's in back of the aircraft up to the forward portion, essentially allowing it to blend in with the background, making it invisible. And so what we're talking about is force projection. We do not have to worry or rely on nighttime bombing missions by the retired F-117A. We can do it in the daytime now. We can reduce our radar cross signature. We can take our infrared signature down. We can take our acoustic signature down, and we can take our visual signature down to almost zero. So we can do a daytime bombing stealth operation. We don't even have to worry about the nighttime. We own it all now.
That is absolutely incredible. And the big question...
They have the technology. There's no doubt about it.
Here's the question, Michael. I understand that, we're still in a state of war as human beings, and it's really sad. The resolve needs to come to a conclusion. But this technology is so developed, and I believe that there is a core group of individuals around the world working in tandem to create some sort of super technology. The question is, why is it being developed?
Well, one reason that it's being developed is because the Air Force has a standard policy to control the high ground. That is the primary goal, because they know that when you control the high ground, you control the world, and that's the goal. They will stop at nothing to control the high ground, in conjunction with the CIA, because the mandate at the CIA, and I'll repeat this, their mandate at the CIA is to lie, deny, and deceive, and they'll do anything it takes to control the high ground. That's why they'll do it.
Do you think developing this technology in defense of an extraterrestrial force will make it easier for governments and people around the world and government to disclose little by little the idea, as the Vatican has and other groups have, that there's a presence coming to Earth?
See, that is the $64 billion question that we all need to answer.
Yeah.
Was von Braun's comment correct when he talked about a fake alien invasion
yes.
Just before he passed away? We just don't know. Is Project Bluebeam in the cards? We just don't know. Is Star Wars a program, in point of fact, having nothing to do with a ICBM threat from the Soviet Union, but more importantly, could it have something to do with an extraterrestrial threat? We just don't know. But it seems like that may be a scenario because a lot of these space-based weapons, chemical lasers, brilliant pebbles, are pointed away from the Earth